I'm Amber Wilson, 36 years old, and I never imagined the day would come when my own family would endanger my daughter. I found Haley, just 16, sitting alone near the back service corridor of a foreign resort, tears streaking her face. No passport, no adults in sight. You should have seen her face. My nephew Kyle laughed over the phone later like it was a prank. His sister Jenna giggled in the background. My parents and brothers stood by saying nothing. That was the moment something shifted in me, and by morning, they wouldn't see me coming. Before I go any further, let me know where you're listening from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand your ground after someone you trusted went too far. Growing up, I always believed family meant support. That was how my parents raised us: Sunday dinners, family road trips, handmade birthday cakes, even when money was tight. My dad worked construction. My mom kept the books at a local clinic. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Or so I thought. Things started to unravel 5 years ago when my husband Daniel told me he was leaving. He'd fallen for his assistant, a woman barely out of college. The divorce was drawn out, painful. Haley was 11 at the time. I picked up the pieces as best I could, got a promotion at the firm, bought us a modest house in a quiet school district, made sure she had everything she needed, even when Daniel's visits became fewer and further between. But the hardest part wasn't doing it alone. It was realizing how quickly my own family turned their backs. My brother Mark told me I must have driven Daniel away. His wife Carol said things like, "Career women always miss the signs." Their kids Kyle and Jenna started treating Haley like she was beneath them. My parents Harold and Margaret never said anything outright, but their actions were loud enough. When I sold my wedding ring to cover Haley's orthodontics, my mother called it dramatic. When Mark got a small promotion, they threw a dinner party. When I became department head, I got a thumbs-up text. Still, I kept the peace. I wanted Haley to know her grandparents, her cousins. I arranged birthday calls, brought pies to Thanksgiving, kept my opinions to myself. Haley, ever hopeful, did everything she could to win their affection. She'd bring them little gifts, follow Jenna around like a shadow laugh at Kyle's jokes, even when they were at her expense. Then came the family group text. My mother sent it out in March. "Your father and I are celebrating our 40th anniversary with a family trip, no excuses. Everyone is coming, the destination, a coastal resort in a country that looked like paradise on travel brochures, but came with stern warnings from the State Department. Parts of it had been flagged for kidnappings and cartel activity. I called my mother right away. "Mom, are you sure this place is safe?" "Don't be dramatic, Amber," she said, sighing into the phone. "It's a 5-star resort in a safe zone. Mark and Carol already put their deposit down. I had work commitments. Haley had a summer photography program. But the guilt trip came quickly. So your job is more important than your father's health." And when I told Haley about the trip, her eyes lit up. "I've never even left the country." "Mom, please," I gave in. I researched everything. Emergency numbers, maps, embassy registration, extra insurance. I made laminated cards with contact info, packed copies of our documents. During the family's video call the week before departure, I tried again to raise concerns. I barely got 2 sentences out before Mark interrupted. "Classic Amber. Always afraid of something. Stop being such a helicopter parent," Dad added. "She'll be fine." Carol smiled. "Our kids aren't worried." Haley looked uncomfortable, but she said nothing. That night I reviewed everything with her again: passport copies, safety rules, what to do if we got separated. "Jenna says you're being paranoid," she told me as I tucked the papers into her travel bag. I'd rather be paranoid than sorry. I didn't know how true those words would become. We arrived to sunshine cocktails and cold towels at check-in. The beach was breathtaking. The resort was all polished floors and flower arrangements. My mother sipped her drink and smiled. "See Amber. Nothing to worry about." Haley unpacked in our shared room. She had a new swimsuit, bright sundresses, her camera gear. For a moment, I believed maybe this could be good, but I kept hearing Kyle's voice from the pool that afternoon, bragging that bartenders didn't care how old you looked. I saw the way Jenna rolled her eyes when Haley asked about sunscreen. Later, I found Haley trying on one of Jenna's swimsuits clearly too small. They said mine looked like something a 12-year-old would wear, she explained, embarrassed. I reminded her that she looked perfect as she was. She didn't seem to believe me. The next morning, there was a guided tour through the resort's nature trails. The guide asked everyone to stay on marked paths. Local wildlife can be unpredictable, she warned. Within minutes, Kyle and Jenna were dragging Haley off trail. They're just taking photos, my dad said when I tried to follow. It's not about control, I told him. It's about safety. Thomas and Carol aren't chasing their kids, he said. The worst part was watching Haley try to keep up, eager to be liked, even if it meant bending rules she knew better than to break. Every day the pattern continued. Kyle and Jenna pushed limits, and I played the bad guy. But when they started talking about exploring caves off-site and venturing into nearby towns without adults, I drew a hard line. Haley stays with me. By dinner on the fourth night, my nerves were frayed. The next day's excursion was to the coastal ruins, supposedly a highlight of the trip, but it required a long drive through areas outside the resort's safety zone. We've already paid, my father said. You're making a big deal out of nothing, Mark added. I insisted Haley carry her emergency information and ID copy, even if no one else did. She rolled her eyes but nodded. That night she got a message from Jenna. Tomorrow's going to be epic, Haley said, smiling down at her phone. I didn't ask what they were planning. I should have. The morning of the coastal ruins excursion started clear and quiet. The sky was soft and blue, and the ocean breeze slipped in through the balcony doors. I was up early, double-checking the day pack, while Haley scrolled through her phone, already dressed, and humming to herself. Did you put your passport copy in your shorts pocket like we talked about? I asked. She sighed and patted her side. Yes, Mom. Can I go meet Jenna in the lobby? I looked at the clock. It was only 7:30. The tour wasn't leaving for another half hour. Just wait a few minutes. I'll come down with you after I finish this coffee. A notification lit up my phone. It was an email from one of my biggest clients marked urgent. I opened it thinking it was a routine follow-up, but the tone was sharp. They were threatening to pull the campaign unless I approved a final edit immediately. It wasn't something I could ignore. I glanced at Haley. Just run down and let them know I'll be 5 minutes behind you. Don't leave the lobby, okay? She nodded and grabbed her phone, already halfway to the door. The email turned into a video call, which turned into 15 minutes. I wrapped up as quickly as I could, grabbed our bags, and rushed downstairs, already rehearsing my apology. But the lobby was empty. The tour desk attendant looked up as I approached. Are you looking for the Coastal Ruins group? Yes, I said, scanning the area. They're my family. My daughter went down ahead of me. They left about 10 minutes ago. That can't be right, I said. They wouldn't go without us. She checked the clipboard. Wilson party, 8 guests, all accounted for. I shook my head. That's not possible. I wasn't with them. My daughter was waiting. Her name's Haley. 16. She wouldn't go without me. I remember her, she said, her brow tightening. She came down but didn't have her tour confirmation or ID. The guide wouldn't let her board. My stomach dropped. I called Haley right away. The call failed. I tried again, nothing. I dialed my parents, straight to voicemail. Mark, Carol, no answer. A few seconds later, a text from Haley came through in pieces. Mom, where are you? They left me. The words hit like a cold wave. I typed back fast. Where are you? Stay put. Her reply arrived in fragments. Hotel wouldn't let me. No passport. Kyle took... I was already moving. I showed her photo to the front desk, then to the concierge. A security guard remembered her, said she had been trying to follow the group but was turned away. She looked upset, he said. She went back toward the guest rooms. I found her near the service corridor, tucked into a corner beside a stack of supply crates. She was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. When she saw me, she broke down. "They just left me," she sobbed. I sat beside her and pulled her in. Her hands were shaking. It took a long while before she could speak clearly. She told me how Kyle and Jenna had convinced her to leave her passport in the room safe. They said carrying it was weird, that the guide would have everything anyway. She had believed them. They walked to the tour bus together. Then Kyle said he forgot something and ran back toward the hotel with Jenna. He told her to wait and tell the adults they'd be right back. Then she saw the family walking toward the bus, my parents Mark and Carol, Kyle, and Jenna all boarding together. She tried to get on, but the guide asked for ID. She told him I had it. He wouldn't let her board. I knocked on the window. Grandma looked at me. She saw me. Then she turned away. Haley's voice cracked. Uncle Mark said something to the driver, and then they left. She had called Kyle right away. He answered laughing. He said it was a lesson in independence. Jenna told him to put it on speaker so she could talk to me too. Haley's face crumpled, remembering it. She said, "How does it feel to be on your own for once, Princess? Maybe now you'll learn the world doesn't revolve around you and Aunt Amber." Mark took the phone and told her they'd see her later, that she'd be fine at the resort. I held her tighter. Back in our room, I helped her wash up and change. I tried calling the family again. This time Mark picked up. "You left my daughter alone," I said. "Don't be dramatic. She's fine. It was a joke. She needs to grow up." I asked to speak to my parents. My father came on. "She's at a luxury resort," he said. "It's good for her to build some character." Then my mother added, "Maybe now she'll stop being so afraid of everything." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just ended the call. Haley sat on the bed, eyes wide. "What are we going to do?" she asked. "We're going to stay safe," I said, "and then we're going to make sure this never happens again." While she rested, I called the front desk. I explained exactly what had happened. The hotel manager was alarmed. He offered a room upgrade and promised additional security. He also assured me that our new room number would not be shared with anyone, including my family. Next, I contacted the U.S. Embassy. The officer I spoke with didn't hesitate. "This could qualify as child endangerment," she told me. "You should file a formal report." "I will," I said. When Haley came out from her shower, I sat with her on the balcony and explained what steps I'd taken. Her eyes widened. "Is it illegal?" "What they did?" "In some situations, yes." She was quiet for a long time. "They're going to be mad. Let them be," I said. "You come first. That's all that matters." We stayed in the room that afternoon, ordered room service, and watched old movies. I answered no calls. I sent no replies. Around 6 o'clock, Mark finally called. "We're heading back," he said, like nothing had happened. "Dad wants to know if you're joining us for dinner or still sulking." "We'll meet you in the lobby at 8, I replied. Then I hung up. Haley looked at me nervous. "What's going to happen?" "We're going to have a family meeting," I said. I helped her pick out something nice to wear, simple, polished. I put on the dress I used for important presentations. We walked downstairs together just before 8. My parents arrived first, then Mark and Carol. Kyle and Jenna trailed behind, quieter than usual. My father looked impatient. My mother smiled like nothing had happened. "There you are," she said. "Your father made dinner reservations. We're not going to dinner," I told them. "We're going to talk, right here." My mother glanced around. "Amber people are watching." "Yes, they are," I said. "Hotel staff, embassy officials, everyone who helped me document what happened to my daughter today." My father's expression shifted. "You involved the embassy?" "I did." Mark stepped forward. "Look, things got out of hand. The kids were just messing around. Endangering a 16-year-old is not a prank." Kyle finally spoke. "We didn't think it would be that big of a deal." Haley stood tall beside me. "It wasn't funny," she said. "It was scary, and it showed me exactly how you all see me." My mother tried again. "We all make mistakes. Family forgives." "Not tonight," I said. "Tonight, Haley and I will be keeping to ourselves." Mark's mouth twisted. "You're acting like this is some business negotiation." "In a way, I said it is. You've shown me where we stand. I'm adjusting accordingly." Then I turned to Haley. "You ready to go back upstairs?" She nodded. And as we walked to the elevator, I knew something had changed for both of us. The next morning, I woke just before sunrise. The resort was quiet. From our balcony, I could see the waves lapping gently at the shore. Haley was still asleep, her breathing, even her face, finally relaxed. I stepped out into the early light with my notebook and phone, careful not to wake her. I had a list to finish, a short one, just names and numbers, but each call carried weight. First, I rang our lawyer, then our financial advisor. Last, a therapist I'd found the night before, a woman who specialized in family trauma and adolescent recovery. Each conversation added another layer to the plan I was building quietly, while the rest of the family likely thought we were still licking our wounds. Room service knocked around 8:00 a.m. A quiet knock, not the usual cheerful tapping. I had requested the delivery the night before: waffles, scrambled eggs, Haley's favorite smoothie, the kind of breakfast that was meant to say, "You're safe now." She woke slowly and blinked at the tray. "You did all this?" she asked, still groggy. "I thought we could use a quiet start today." We ate on the balcony, watching the resort come to life around us, staff setting out umbrellas, guests heading toward the pool in soft sandals and sunglasses. Haley took a sip of her smoothie, then set it down. "I keep thinking I'll feel bad, like guilty, for not just letting it go last night. And it hasn't hit. I thought it would, but it hasn't." I nodded once and said nothing. She didn't need convincing. She just needed time to feel the difference. Right around 10:00, my phone rang. My mother. I let it buzz twice before answering and switched to speaker. "Amber, this has gone on long enough," she said without pausing. "Your father and I want you and Haley at the pool in 30 minutes. We need to move past this." "We already have plans," I said calmly. "What plans could possibly be more important than family time?" "You paid for this trip," I said. "I just sent you a confirmation. I've reimbursed our full share. Check your email." A pause. Then, "That wasn't necessary. I prefer it this way. Keeps things clean. We're family, not business associates. Family doesn't leave a 16-year-old alone in a foreign country." I ended the call before she could respond. Haley looked at me with something I hadn't seen in a long time, something steady. "You paid them back for the whole trip, every cent. We spent the morning at the spa, not the kind of place I usually spring for, but I wanted her to feel comfortable in her own skin again. The silence there was different. No whispers, no tension, just warm towels and lavender in the air. When we finally walked through the beach cafe for lunch, I spotted the rest of them right away. They were at a large table near the water, halfway through drinks shaded by blue umbrellas. Kyle saw us first, then Jenna. It didn't take long for Mark to stand and start walking our way. "This is childish," he said, standing behind my chair. I didn't look up. "We're comfortable here." "Haley," he said, switching tone. "Your grandparents want to see you. Don't let your mother's overreaction keep you from your family." Haley didn't look at him. "I was abandoned, without ID, in a foreign country. That's not an overreaction." "They feel terrible," he said. "They're just kids. They made a mistake." "They're older than I am," she said, "and they knew what they were doing." Just then, Kyle and Jenna approached. They looked less smug than usual, but still unsure. "We're sorry, Haley," Kyle said. "We didn't mean for it to be scary. We thought it would just be funny," Jenna added. "We wouldn't have let anything happen." Haley stayed quiet for a second. "But something did happen. You left me, and then you laughed about it." "What else do you want?" Kyle asked, the edge creeping back into his voice. I stepped in. Space for the rest of the trip. That was when my parents arrived. My father's face was tight. Enough of this nonsense, he said. You've made your point. Time to move forward. I stayed seated. I agree. Moving forward means accepting that actions have consequences. No one was endangered, my mother said. You're blowing this up. The hotel doesn't think so. Neither does the U.S. Embassy. You actually went that far? My father asked, voice rising. This isn't just a family matter. It was child endangerment. Sandra stepped forward. You're threatening legal action against your own family. I'm not threatening anything I said. I filed reports. What happens next depends on how everyone chooses to proceed. My father's jaw moved, but he said nothing. After a long pause, he spoke quietly. Maybe we all need to cool off. We'll respect your request for space, he added. They stepped away, gathering their things. For the first time, no one turned back to glance at us. Haley let out a breath. That was a lot, she said. You handled it well. She was quiet a moment, then looked over at me. When you said what happens next depends on them, does that mean you're still deciding? It means I've left them a choice. But I've already made mine. That afternoon we moved with purpose, appearing in the lobby just long enough to be seen stopping briefly by the pool, then retreating back to our suite. Not hiding, just visible enough. That night, as we got ready for dinner, Haley brushed her hair in the mirror. Do you think we'll ever forgive them? Forgiveness is complicated, I said. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. And it doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. She nodded slowly. I don't think I'm ready. Not until they understand what they did wrong. Not just say sorry to make it go away. That's fair, I said. Understanding should come first. In the lobby, we crossed paths with Mark and Carol. We've been talking, Carol said. The kids want to make a proper apology, maybe tomorrow. We'll think about it, I told her. Later that night, I sat with my laptop open, reviewing documents from the attorney. Each file was another thread in a net I'd spent the last 2 days quietly weaving financial updates, trust modifications, property agreements. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Whatever point you're trying to make, it's gone far enough. Your mother is upset. Time to act like family again. I held it out so Haley could see. She read it, then said, They still don't think they did anything wrong. They think the problem is that we're upset. I typed one line in reply and hit send. Family doesn't abandon family. We'll talk when we're home. Then I turned off my phone. We had 3 days left at the resort, enough time to let things settle, enough time to finish what I'd started. The following morning, Haley and I skipped the family breakfast again. We stayed on the quiet side of the resort near the spa gardens. I let her sleep in while I went back over our checklist. Each step was nearly complete. The last pieces were waiting on paperwork from our lawyer and a few messages I'd drafted the night before. Everything was in motion. The only thing left was timing. Room service came with fresh fruit coffee and toast. Haley stretched as she stepped onto the balcony. They're probably watching for us, she said, reaching for a slice of melon. That's fine. We sat in the shade, letting the breeze carry away the heaviness that had settled over the past few days. I kept my phone close, waiting for a reply from the bank regarding the trust restructuring. At 9:52, it came through confirmation, signed and filed. Haley leaned back in her chair, turning her face toward the sun. I don't feel nervous anymore, she sounded surprised. I thought I'd be counting the days until we left, but now I kind of want to see how this ends. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother calling for the 3rd time that week. I let it go to voicemail. We headed out around midday and chose a quiet cafe near the beach for lunch. We had just settled into our table when we saw them, my parents, Mark and Carol, sitting at the large family table in the center of the patio. Kyle and Jenna were on their phones, barely touching their food. It didn't take long. Mark stood, brushed off his pants, and crossed the deck. This is getting old, he said. Mom and Dad set this up for everyone. Can't you just sit with us?" "We're fine here," I said, not looking up. "Haley," he said, softening his tone, "don't let your mother's grudge cost you time with your family." Haley picked up her water glass, keeping her gaze steady. "I didn't walk away from anyone. You all left me." Kyle and Jenna looked over. A moment later, they stood and followed. "We're sorry, Haley." Kyle started. "Really?" It got out of hand. "It was supposed to be a joke," Jenna added. "We didn't mean for it to be that serious." "It was serious," Haley said. "I didn't know if you were coming back." Jenna folded her arms. "We said sorry." Haley didn't respond right away. Then I spoke. "We're not ready for anything more than this." That was when my father came over. His voice was low but tight. "The separation is hurting everyone. Enough is enough." "You think the damage started when we stepped away," I said. "It didn't. I raised you better than this," he replied. "You've made your point." "No," I said. "We haven't even started." That afternoon, Haley and I kept to ourselves. We walked the nature trail again, the same one where Kyle and Jenna had pulled her off course earlier in the trip. This time we stayed on the marked path. At the far end, there was a small, shaded overlook facing the water. We sat there sharing a cold bottle of water quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Do you think they'll ever really understand?" "Some might," I said. "Eventually. But we're not waiting for that anymore, are we?" "No," I said. "We're not." She nodded, then looked out over the water. "It feels like something's settling inside me, like I've been holding my breath for a long time." That evening, just before dinner, Carol approached us in the lobby. "We've been talking," she said. "The kids want to apologize again. We'd like to sit down, just the 6 of us, if you're willing." I paused. "We'll think about it." We went to dinner anyway, just not with them. Afterward, I returned a call from our lawyer and confirmed the withdrawal of my investment in the family lake house. The agreement had been signed and filed. My name was officially off the title. I drafted an email to follow up on the college fund restructure. Haley sat on the couch beside me, flipping through photos on her camera. She paused on one, an image of the beach path just before sunrise, soft gold light on the sand. "I used to think I had to keep everyone happy," she said quietly. "Like if I just tried harder, they'd see me." "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," I said. A new message came in, this one from my father. "Enough already. You've made your point. Mom is upset. Let's stop dragging this out." I showed it to Haley. She read it, then handed my phone back. "They still don't get it." "No," I said, "but we do." I tapped out a reply and hit send. "We'll talk when we're home." The final full day of the trip passed without incident. No more confrontations. No more apologies. Just quiet distance. We packed slowly the next morning and met in the lobby for the airport shuttle. My parents noticed our separate luggage pile almost immediately. "Why aren't your bags with ours?" my mother asked. "We've made some changes," I said. "We're still on the same flight." At the airport, Haley and I were directed to the first-class counter. My father's eyebrows rose. "This is unnecessary," he said. "It's one plane. Why spend more just to sit apart?" "It's not about the seats," I said. "It's about the space." On the plane, once we were settled, Haley pulled the window shade and leaned back. "What happens when we land?" "We go home," I said. "And then we make sure they know this wasn't just a phase." She turned her head toward me. "You said something to Uncle Mark, that you had made arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" "Legal ones," I said, "and financial ones. But you'll hear all of it soon, when we're ready." She didn't ask anything else. She didn't need to. As the plane lifted off, she reached for my hand. I looked out the window, the resort fading behind us. Everything we needed was ahead. At cruising altitude, the cabin lights dimmed. Haley leaned against the window, watching clouds shift below us. She hadn't said much since takeoff, but now she glanced sideways. "What kind of arrangements did you make?" she asked. I turned toward her. "Several kinds." She waited. Legal, for one. I filed a report with the U.S. Embassy the same day they left you. It's documented now officially. Will they get in trouble? She asked quietly. No arrests or anything like that, I said. But it's on record, which matters. She nodded slowly. And the other stuff, I opened my bag and pulled out the printed confirmation letters. You remember the college funds I've been managing for Kyle and Jenna? She nodded again. I set those up years ago when things were different. Back when everyone assumed we'd always be one big happy family. Her eyes stayed on the folder in my hands. I've handed over control, I said. An independent trustee is managing them now. There are new rules in place. Money can only be released for qualified education expenses. No more parental discretion. No more favors. She looked surprised. You had that kind of control? For a while, yes. And it wasn't a problem until now. They're going to be mad. Probably. I placed the folder back in my bag and rested my hands on my lap. But it's better this way for the kids, too. It protects the money from being misused, and it removes me from anything that might be held over us later. She seemed to take that in, then asked, Was there anything else? I hesitated. The lake house, I said. I've pulled my investment and signed off the deed. I'm no longer part owner. Her brows lifted. That was your money, though. Almost a third of it, I said. But it's not worth the attachment anymore. That money will be reallocated, some for your college fund, some into new savings. She didn't speak for a moment. You really did all this while we were still at the resort, bit by bit. Every night after you went to sleep. A flight attendant stopped by with drinks. Haley asked for ginger ale. I took water. As the flight continued, I filled in the gaps, new boundaries with the family pre-written communication terms, scheduled mediation sessions if necessary. By the time we landed at the international hub, she knew everything. When we stepped into the terminal, my parents were already waiting at the connecting gate. My mother waved us over. My father motioned for us to follow him to a nearby seating area. We need to talk before the next leg, he said. I agreed. We found a quiet corner near the lounge entrance. Haley sat beside me. My parents, Mark and Carol, Kyle and Jenna stood a few feet back. I've made some decisions, I said, keeping my voice level, and I think you should be aware of them before we return home. You've made yourself clear, my father said. There's no need to... I filed official reports with U.S. and foreign authorities regarding the abandonment, I said. The documentation includes Haley's age, the absence of identification, and your knowledge of the travel warnings. My mother's mouth tightened. That's outrageous. It's complete, I said, filed and acknowledged. I turned to Mark. I've also restructured Kyle and Jenna's college funds. I'm no longer the trustee. The money remains, but access requires proper documentation, and all funds must be used strictly for education. I've also withdrawn my name from the account records. You had no right, Mark said. His face flushed. I had full authority under the original terms, I said, and I've passed that authority to a neutral party. What else? Carol asked, arms crossed. The lake house, I said. I've pulled my share and signed the separation documents. Your lawyer will receive the paperwork this week. My father's voice rose. You're tearing this family apart over one bad day. I looked at him evenly. You made your choices. This is me making mine. Kyle stepped forward. So what now? We're just... cut off. Haley looked over at him. Her expression was calm. No. But it won't ever be what it was. Jenna spoke softly. We didn't think. We didn't know it would go this far. Haley didn't reply. The gate agent called first-class boarding. I stood. We'll be on the same flight, but we won't be having this conversation again until we're back. Mark called after me. This isn't over, Amber. I turned once. You're right. It's just beginning. On the second flight, Haley curled up beside me. The cabin lights dimmed again and the hum of the engine filled the silence between us. After a while, she spoke. "I'm proud of you." I rested my hand on hers. I should have done it sooner. She leaned against my shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you did it when it mattered." We landed just after dusk. A friend of mine, Jessica, was waiting outside baggage claim just as we'd arranged from the resort. She pulled up in her car and stepped out with a smile. "Your chariot awaits." We loaded our bags, and as we got in, I saw Carol watching from across the lot. "Aren't you riding with us?" she asked. "We've got our own ride," I said. "We'll see you when we're ready." I didn't wait for her reply. In the car, Haley finally relaxed. "What now?" she asked. "Now," I said, "we go home, we recover, and then we have the family meeting next weekend. You really think they'll come?" "They'll come," I said. "They think they can talk us back into the old dynamic." Jessica glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Sounds like I missed one heck of a vacation story." I looked over at Haley, then out the window. They have no idea how much has changed. The following Saturday, I stood in the living room just after 1:30, checking over the seating one last time. I'd rearranged everything. No cozy sofas, no shared corners, just individual chairs placed in a loose circle with Haley's and mine set slightly apart from the others. On the coffee table was a simple folder. Inside were printed copies of every document I had filed, changed, or finalized over the past week. Haley came out of the kitchen with a tray of cookies. Store-bought. Nothing homemade. Nothing sentimental. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm ready," I said. At exactly 2:00, the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I saw them gathering my parents in front, Mark and Carol, just behind Kyle and Jenna, trailing a few steps back. No one was talking, just that same strained politeness that had followed us through the airport a few days earlier. I opened the door and stepped aside. "Thank you for coming," I said, keeping my voice even. My mother reached in for a hug. I shifted slightly, letting it land as a brief shoulder touch. She murmured, "This has all been so unnecessary." "We'll get to that," I said. They filed in slowly. I pointed them toward the chairs. No one spoke as they sat, just the shuffling of bags and coats. Haley stayed near me, calm but alert. It was my father who finally broke the silence. "All right, Amber, we're here as requested." He gestured to the setup, though I must say all this formality feels excessive. I didn't respond to that. I picked up the folder from the table and opened it slowly. "What happened on our vacation wasn't a misunderstanding," I began. "It was a turning point, and from that moment on, the way we operate as a family has changed." "If this is about more apologies," Mark started. I raised a hand. "It's not. This isn't about apologies. It's about consequences and boundaries." I passed around sealed envelopes, one for each adult. Inside, you'll find documents specific to your role in the family and your access to Haley and me moving forward. My father frowned as he opened his. "This is a formal notice," he said, reading. "Scheduled visits. Written notice. You're regulating your own parents. You participated in the abandonment of my child," I replied. "You don't get open access anymore." Turning to Mark and Carol, I continued. "Your envelope includes details about the new terms of the college funds. As I explained at the airport, the funds are intact, but disbursement will now be handled by a third-party trustee. I'm no longer involved." Carol flipped through the pages. "We have to request withdrawals now, with supporting documentation." "That's correct. The money is for education." "Nothing else." Mark scoffed. "This is punishment, pure and simple." "No," I said. "Punishment would have been closing the accounts altogether. This is a boundary, a clear one." Kyle and Jenna hadn't said much since arriving. Now they looked toward me, then toward Haley. You'll find letters in your envelopes, I said to them, explaining what will be expected if you want to rebuild any kind of relationship with Haley. That includes direct apologies, not just saying the words, but demonstrating that you understand the harm you caused. My father stood abruptly. You're treating us like criminals who need permission to see our own family. Family doesn't abandon one of their own to teach a lesson. Haley said, her voice steady. You all made a choice. So did we. My mother reached across toward her. We love you both. This has all just been blown out of proportion. Haley didn't pull away, but she didn't reach back either. You keep saying that she said, but it only proves why these new rules are necessary. Thomas folded his arms. So what now? We sign these papers like it's a contract just to stay in your lives. There's nothing to sign, I said. You can choose to respect the boundaries or not. That choice determines the relationship we have going forward, or whether there's one at all. The conversation circled for the next hour, pleading, questioning small bursts of temper, then guilt, then silence. It was Kyle who finally broke from the group. I really am sorry, he said, looking at Haley, not me. It wasn't just dumb. It was wrong. And it scared you. I get that now. Jenna glanced at him, then nodded. We thought it'd just be embarrassing, she added. But you're right. It could have gone really badly. I didn't think about that. Haley looked between them. I'm not ready to pretend everything's fine, she said. But thank you for saying that. It's a start. By the time they left, it was nearly 5. They didn't slam the door. They didn't shout. They just left one by one, quiet, uncertain but aware now that things had shifted. I locked up behind them. Haley let out a long breath. That was a lot. It was, I said. We cleaned up the dishes in silence, then stepped outside to the porch swing. The early evening air was still warm, the sun just starting to dip behind the trees. They won't all follow through, will they? Haley asked. Probably not all I said, but the ones who do, they'll know where the line is now. She nodded. It wasn't finished, not yet, but the new chapter had begun. Over the weeks that followed the family meeting, the boundaries I'd laid out were tested, just not in the way I expected. The first time my parents showed up unannounced, it was a Wednesday afternoon. I saw them through the kitchen window, my father stepping out of the passenger seat, my mother straightening her blouse before she rang the bell. I opened the door and stepped outside, keeping it mostly closed behind me. We were just in the area, she said, smiling like nothing had happened. We're in the middle of something, I said, and we agreed visits need to be scheduled in advance. We thought you might reconsider, my father said. After things had cooled down. We're not there yet, I said, calm but firm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't invite them in. The next scheduled visit was pushed back a full week. Haley stayed quiet about it, but I noticed she checked the front window more often that day, just to be sure. The second violation came in the form of a direct phone call. Haley's number. My mother. She answered before I could intervene. I stood nearby folding laundry, trying not to listen, but I caught the tone right away. Soft coaxing. When the call ended, Haley set the phone down slowly. She said she misses me, she said. Then she asked if I thought you were being too strict. I didn't say anything right away, just watched her. I told her if she wants to talk to me, she needs to talk to you first. That weekend, we had another quiet conversation as a family, just the two of us, and the same folder from the meeting. We reviewed the original boundaries and added a new one. All communication with Haley would come through me until further notice. The consequences were clear. Another violation would reset the waiting period. We sent a message to the whole group, clear, polite, final. For a while, things went quiet. Then slowly, we began to see small shifts. Carol started sending brief, respectful messages asking about logistics, nothing emotional, nothing invasive. Mark didn't love the new tone, but he complied. My parents settled into silence. Whether it was resignation or strategy, I couldn't tell. Kyle and Jenna, surprisingly, were the first to actively engage. It started with a letter, handwritten. Haley read it at the kitchen table one evening under the soft light of the pendant lamp. She didn't say anything until she reached the last page. "They actually get it," she said, her voice thoughtful. "They said it wasn't just a bad decision, it was a betrayal, and that they understand if I need time." She paused. "They signed it, 'Your cousins if and when you're ready.'" A few days later, they asked if they could visit supervised just for an hour. We agreed. They came by on a Sunday afternoon. Haley answered the door. I stayed nearby but gave them some space in the living room. The visit was quiet, a little awkward, but they brought iced tea and a pack of her favorite art pens. Haley listened more than she spoke, but she didn't shut down, and she didn't look away. That was something. Over the next few months, the visits became more regular, still supervised, still limited. But the tension softened with time. Mark and Carol struggled more. There were moments of effort, then moments that felt rehearsed or calculated. At one point, Haley showed me a voicemail Carol had left. She said, "You were making things more dramatic than they needed to be." I watched Haley's expression. She said it like I was being kept from them, like you were the gatekeeper and I was the one being sheltered. I asked her how she wanted to handle it. "I want to show you something," she said. She pulled out her phone and played back a recording. It was from an earlier visit, Carol speaking in the backyard, unaware that Haley had tapped her voice memo app. "She'll come around," Carol had said. "Amber always cools off. She just needs to feel in control for a little while." We added another restriction that week, and when Mark pushed back, I sent them a copy of the transcript. Things got quiet again after that. 3 months after the trip, we agreed to a neutral location for a group meal, a Sunday lunch at a nearby restaurant. Public enough to keep things civil, familiar enough to feel safe. We reserved a private room near the back, round table, neutral tones. The conversation was slow, cautious, but not entirely forced. My parents asked Haley about school. I noticed they listened longer than usual before responding. Carol offered to help with a college recommendation, but I could tell she caught herself and reworded it. Mark stayed quiet most of the meal. As we walked to the parking lot afterward, my mother pulled me aside. "I still think you overreacted," she said, "but I'm starting to understand why you felt the need to draw such hard lines. Coming from her, that was more than I expected. Thank you for saying that," I said. She paused, studying my face. "Do you think things will ever go back to how they were?" "No," I said honestly, "but they might become something better, healthier." Later that evening, Haley and I sat on the porch swing. The sun was low. The breeze had a hint of fall in it. "I used to think family meant putting up with whatever they gave you," she said. "I know." She leaned against my shoulder. "Now I think it should be about respect. Mutual respect. No matter who it is." We rocked slowly, the creaking of the chain soft in the quiet. "That's a lesson I wish I'd learned sooner," I said. She didn't respond right away. Then she said, "We're learning it together." And that was enough for now. That fall, the leaves turned early. Golden light spilled across our front porch most evenings, and Haley and I found ourselves sitting out there, more often wrapped in quiet. The energy in the house had changed, not louder, not colder, just steadier. We no longer braced for the next hurtful comment, the next dismissal disguised as advice. There was space to breathe. One Saturday afternoon, Haley brought down a shoebox from the top of her closet. Inside were photos, snapshots from that vacation. Smiling faces in front of palm trees, plates of food by the pool, one blurry picture of the tour bus pulling away. She handed me a small print. "This one's from the last morning," she said. "I almost deleted it. It was a photo of her standing on the beach at sunrise. Alone. The shoreline curved behind her, empty. She looked young, but not weak. There was a kind of stillness in her eyes I hadn't noticed before. I want to keep it," she said, to remind myself that I didn't fall apart. And she hadn't. She'd held on, then stood up. And when the people she trusted walked away, she'd stopped chasing them. It took time, but the family settled into the new rhythm. The boundaries remained in place, some tested, some respected. Kyle and Jenna kept showing up quieter, more thoughtful. My parents wrote a letter of their own, not perfect, but better. Mark and Carol kept their distance, which honestly felt like the right fit for now. We didn't go back to how things used to be. That version of family, the one built on performance and hierarchy, was gone. But something else was taking its place. At Haley's request, we started hosting small Sunday dinners, not with everyone, just the ones who came with open hands instead of expectations. Sometimes that meant only 3 of us, other times 5. Always quiet, always enough. And one night, as we cleared the dishes and turned out the kitchen lights, Haley said something I'll never forget. "I used to think safety meant being accepted," she said. "Now I think it means being seen and still being chosen." I stood there for a moment, hand on the light switch, taking that in. Because she was right. We teach our children how to cross streets, how to lock doors, how to call for help. But teaching them how to protect their hearts, how to expect respect, and how to hold their ground, that takes more than words. That takes example. And I hadn't always known how to give her that. But now I did. We're still learning, still growing, still unlearning the things we once believed we had to accept. But our foundation is stronger, our circle is smaller, and our peace is deeper. So if you've ever been told to just keep the peace no matter the cost, or if you've ever been asked to excuse harm just because it came from family, I want you to hear this. You are not difficult for needing safety. You are not dramatic for asking to be treated with care. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that tell the right people how to reach you. And the ones who truly love you, they will learn the way. Thank you for listening to our story. If it touched something in you, feel free to share your own journey in the comments. I'd love to know how you've protected your peace or how you've reclaimed it. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this one, you're welcome to follow along. We'll be here, quietly choosing better, one boundary at a time.